Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to another aesthetic imaging video tutorial. My name is Dave, and today we'll be creating this cartoon style cells. And if you notice, as they tear apart, they kind of stick to each other. We got some highlights, some shading, stroke effect, and it all feeds off of one composition. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so here's the composition that we're going to be creating. As you can see, it's just made up of two compositions and one null object. Of course, inside of these comps, there's a whole bunch more. We have the cell nucleus and the cell large. And each one of these are made up of our specular, shading, stroke. Let's turn on transparency grid, stroke, and our color. Now, neat thing is that all these comps are the same. They're just duplicated with different effects put on it. Inside our cell large, we have two shape layers. Turn off our graph editor. Two shape layers and just 6 keyframes. Our nucleus has the same too. So 12 keyframes is all it takes for this animation. So rather than sitting here and just talking about how all this is done, let's show you how it's done. All right, first thing we want to do is create a new composition. We're going to call this main comp. I'm making this 1280 by 720, and duration we'll set to about 5 seconds. Hit OK. First thing we want to create is our cell. So we're going to go up to the ellipse tool. If you don't see the ellipse tool, you can click down here and hold it down and go to ellipse tool. So we double click on that. Make sure the fill is set to, well, it can be any color you want. Turn the stroke off. And if there is a stroke on it, you can just click on the word stroke and click on that. All right, so now we're going to go down to our shape layer. We're going to call this cell. We're going to open up contents, ellipse 1, ellipse path 1, and we're going to get to our size. And we can check this off right here and set the X in size to be 720. So now it's a perfect circle. We can check that back on, a little chain back on, and we can make this whatever size we want. There we go. So now we're going to add a few effects on here. So we're going to go to effects and presets, and we're going to type in turbulent. And we're going to go to distort, turbulent, displace, and put that on top of our cell. Turn down the size. Here, let's turn off transparency this time. Maybe turn up the mount a little bit, like so. Then we want to take the evolution here. Alt-click on the stopwatch, type in time times 150. So now we have this going on. Now on top of the turbulent displace, we want to put in a fast box blur. Type that in, turn that up to like, I don't know, something like 27, 28, 33. Sure. All right. So now we're going to put a levels on top of that. Color correction levels. And we're going to set this, go over to where it says RGB, and set this to alpha. Then we want to crunch this into about the center. bring them close. If you bring them too close, you get this jagged edge. I don't like that. So you can keep it out a little bit. So now we have this blob. So what we can do now, I'm going to close all these. We can duplicate them by hitting Command D. So we'll call this one cell left, cell right. So we can select both of these, press P on the keyboard. P is in Paul. All right, so we can go to about 12 frames. Click on the stopwatch. And then go up to maybe 2. We'll do 3. And what we're going to do, cell right, we're going to take the X position and just move it over to about there. And then take the left one, move that to about there. So now we can grab all 4 of these keyframes, right click, go to Keyframe Assistant, go to Easy Ease. Now before we do anything else, we want to go to about here. We're going to add some new keyframes and just move them over like that. Maybe move them over a little bit more. There we go. You say, well, that doesn't look like anything special. So what we're going to do is right click, go to New, Adjustment Layer, and we're going to put in Fast Box Blur. So we're basically going to do what we did for the cell, for the actual cells. Turn that up. Levels. Bring that over. Set it to alpha. And just bring those in. So now what we want to do is right click on the position, go to Separate Keyframes, and turn off the stopwatch for the Y position. So we don't need that. And then do the same for the other cell. Separate dimensions, turn off the Y. Then we can select both of them and hit U on the keyboard. And now we just have the keyframes that we want. And we're going to select all of them. We're going to go and click on the graph editor. All right, and of course, it didn't take this one with it. So yeah, we just want to kind of bring those out. We're going to take these two, hold down Shift, and just click out like that. Drag it out. Y. Bring that out. So what we're doing here is we're causing it to linger on this keyframe. And snap. Bring these out a bit. Whoop. All right, so if we play this, it stretches out, kind of holds up there, and then snaps apart. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to select all three of these, hit Shift Command C to pre-compose all that. And we're going to call this Cell Large. So now we have our Cell Large. What we want to do is duplicate the Cell Large in our project window, Command D, and we're going to rename this. Oh, come on. There we go. Hit Enter on the keyboard to rename it to Cell Nucleus. Open that up. And here is how we're going to do this. Hit S on the keyboard and shrink it down. And there we go. So now we have our nucleus. Now we can drag that above our cell large. And now we get to the fun part. We can now color our cell. So I'm going to go to Effects and Presets, type in Fill. And there it is, Generate Fill. So we can add another fill to this guy. I'll make it another color. Or what you can do is in this new segment of Don't Be a Fool, use this tool. We can go to Window, Extensions, Adobe Color Themes. We go to Explore. And we can pick any color scheme we find here. All right. So under Cell Large, we can, under the Fill, we can do the eyedropper tool. Just go over here, and I guess we'll do that. And for the cell nucleus, make it a pink. And we can add a background here, New, Solid. And we can select the darker blue. We can move that down to the bottom. We can duplicate that, Command D. And then we can hit Shift Command Y to bring up the options for it, or the settings. And we'll click on that. So we'll do that color. And then we can go up to our ellipse tool, double click on that, hit F on the keyboard to feather, and we have our background and our cells all colored in. So yeah, the Adobe Color Themes, use it. All right, so now we get to the fun part of the compositing. So now we can duplicate our cell large. We can call this bottom one Cell Large Color. And this one can be Cell Large, Large Stroke. And we're going to change the fill to be black. And we're going to add an effect called Minimax, which is something I just heard of not that long ago, but I use it constantly. All right, so under Operation, make sure it's set to maximum. Under Channel, do Alpha and Color. And bump up the radius to 1. Then what we're going to add is a CC composite. Drop that on top. And we're going to set the composite original to Silhouette Alpha. So that way it's basically cutting out anything within the original layer and only leaving what's on the outside of it. It's the same thing as doing like an alpha track mat. Let's just turn off our nucleus real quick. So now what we can do is duplicate the stroke. Command D to duplicate. And we're going to call this one shading. So what we're going to do is going to get rid of Minimax, and we're going to turn off composite. We're going to set the fill to be 50% under the brightness. Make sure the saturation's turned down as well. And we're going to add an effect called bevel alpha. Set the edge thickness here. And then to get rid of the sharp line here, we're going to add a fast box blur. Just like that. And then we're going to take our CC composite, move it down, and set this to stencil alpha. So that means it will cut out anything outside, although it didn't seem to work. Oh, and then turn it back on. So it will cut out anything outside of this layer. Now we're going to set the blending mode to hard light, and we can turn up the intensity if we want. Where is it? Under bevel alpha, turn up the light intensity. All right, so the last thing we want to do for this one, at least, is duplicate the shading one. Duplicate that, set it to normal blending mode. I'm going to rename this to, or cell large specular. We're going to get rid of the bevel alpha and the fast box blur, and turn off the CC composite for now. We're going to turn the fill down to 0, or down to black. And we're going to add a CC glass. So it's under Stylized CC glass. Under surface, we're going to set the property to alpha. Mess with the softness. Maybe turn that to like 9. Turn down the displacement to 0. And under shading, we're going to turn down the ambient, the diffuse, and the metal all down to 0. Turn up the specular to 100, or whatever you see fit. You can mess with the roughness here. And under light, set the light height to 60. And under light direction, we want to match it with the shading. So we look in our shading. Let's see. Light angle is -60. So we're going to turn that to -60 for light direction. So now it matches up. So we're going to take the blending mode and set it to add. And if you want, you can turn on your CC composite, make sure that it's set to stencil alpha. So now we have this crazy shading, specular, and stroke that goes with the animation. So we can take all of these right here and hit Shift Command C to pre-compose those. And we're going to call this cell large comp. So what we can do is do the same for our cell nucleus. So we're going to duplicate it by hitting Command D. Call the bottom one nucleus color. We can call this top one stroke, or nucleus stroke. Set it to black. Minimax. Set the color, or set the channel to alpha and color. Turn up the radius to 1. And we do our CC composite. CC composite. Set it to silhouette alpha. And we can duplicate that. Call this one nucleus shading. Get rid of our minimax, turn off the CC composite. Turn the fill to 50% brightness. Then we can add our bevel alpha. And this one, I'm going to make it kind of like, it's kind of, the large part is kind of flat on the top, and it's got the rounded sides, or at least that's the illusion we're giving. I want this one to look like it's fully round. So turn up the edge thickness, turn up the light intensity a bit. Then we put on our fast box blur, and we're just going to turn it up. It looks like, till it looks like that. Set the blending mode to hard light. Bring down the CC composite, turn it back on, set it to stencil alpha. Then we can duplicate that, set this to add, call it specular. Get rid of our bevel and the fast box blur. Add a CC glass. Surface to alpha. 19, 9 for the height, 0 for displacement. Light settings, we want to go to light direction, -60. Turn down the ambience, the diffuse, and the metal. Turn up the roughness, turn down the roughness, whatever. Turn up the specular. And there we go. Move the CC composite below that. So there you have it. That's basically the entirety of the effect. If you want, you can pre-compose all your nucleuses together. Call it cell nucleus. And then pre-compose both those cells together, or both cell components. Shift Command C. Call this cell comp. Pre-compose your background. Call it BG for background. And there you go. Oh, but wait. You remember that there were 3? There was a null object. What is the null object for, you ask? Well, that question will be answered in today's segment of
Pro Tips! Quick tips! All the tips! Just the tips!
Alright, so let's say that your boss sees this animation and he's like, oh, that's really awesome. Except I want the light coming from the opposite direction. Okay, let's go into our cell large comp. What was it? Specular. Whoops. Okay, and we go to our light. Change this to 60. Okay. And we go, oh, we gotta change our set. Let's just make things easier here. So what we can do is in our main comp, right click, go to new, null object, and we can call this controls. What we can add here is a slider control. Bring that over. All right, so we're going to call our slider control. We're going to hit enter. We're going to call it light direction. We're going to lock it, and we're going to go into our cells comp, cell large, go into our specular, hit E on the keyboard, look for CC glass, open that up, go to light, and for light direction, we're going to alt-click on the stopwatch. connect it to the slider, not the actual effect, but the slider on it. There we go. Then we can also go into cell large shading. Go to the bevel alpha, light angle, alt-click on that stopwatch, connect it to the slider, and then we can go into our cell nucleus and do the same thing for the specular. E, go to CC glass, light direction, alt-click on the stopwatch, pick whip it to the slider. Now you can see why this could save so much time already, right? Now, nucleus shading. E, find the bevel alpha, light angle, connect it to the slider. Now go back into our main comp and everything's at 0 direction. So now we can just change it. And all of them automatically update. So we can go back to -60 if we want. Maybe one -45. Oh, look how easy that is. All right, you can even, like, let's say we're going to add a fill to it. You can call this cell large color. And then go into our cell large comp. Go to the color. Open up the fill. Alt-click on the color stopwatch. Pick whip it to the color of that. Then we can duplicate that. Call this one cell nucleus color. All right, go into our cell nucleus comp here. Go down to cell nucleus color. Find that fill. Alt-click on the stopwatch. Connect it to the color. Now it automatically updates. This way you can control your color without having to go into other compositions. So you can change your light direction and the color all in the same comp. And you can take it even further and, let's say, set up stroke width and stuff like that. All right, so that has been, well, there you have it. A pretty fun, simple little way to give a nice stylized look to some compositions, to some clips. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, or subscribe, or all three. And yeah, I'll see you next time.